went through every thought you can imagine in 5 years, like first 18 months was hard to stop jumping onto a piano or expecting to do something because I'd been sort of turning out singles and albums since 1962 on the on call, as it were. Every 3 months a single, every 6 months an album. So I was sort of like a robot.
Did you make you made a conscious decision to stop?
Yeah, it was harder to stop than to continue. Although I don't think continuing would have done me any good, artistically. But it's very hard to stop. I kept thinking this must be what it's like when guys get retired at 65 and they're still alive and kicking, but somebody pushed a button and they have to go. So I kind of dealt with that. What would one do if one wasn't doing it? And gradually I got into being a house husband or with Sean or whatever. But at first I was very sort of frantic all the time, didn't know what to do. There seemed to be endless time.
Is that really what you did? I mean, when you say you were a house
Yeah, I
husband,
did it. I was there for 3 meals a
you
day.
didn't travel, you didn't do other
Yeah, I did a little traveling. I traveled with Sean as well, but occasionally I'd take a 3-day zap around the world, like Singapore or Hong Kong or something, just to clear just go around very fast.
Were you aware of every food that went into his mouth?
Every mouthful he's had since he was born, I've practically been at the table for. And the last 5 years, or however long it's been, 74, he was born in 75. Yeah, I've been there every day.
I don't know why people are so amazed about that.
Because mothers are there every day, but she was taking care of business, and one of us had to be there.
I asked John what his days had been like and what he enjoyed the most about staying at home.
The rewards of motherhood. It's that though, what you well, it's like anything, what you put in, you get out. I'd get all those little moments with him. Those little quiet moments when he'd do something for the first time or express something clearly and with a whole sentence, or he related to me like that, and that's what I got out of it. I enjoyed being housebound because I always liked hanging around the house. I mean, writing music is hanging around the house. And the only difference was I wasn't writing music; I was writing menus, right? And I did a little cooking. I learned how to cook bread and things like that. And I went through that for about 6 months of cooking the bread for the whole household. But everybody would eat it. I'd make it on Friday to last the week. It'd be gone by Saturday. So it was a great thrill at first. I took Polaroids of my first loaf and everything. And, and I got that thrill of people eating your food, and I was cooking fish and rice, and because we're basically sort of macrobiotic, whatever that is, We're sort of it's basically health food, brown rice, that kind of stuff. And, but then the thrill would wear off because you wouldn't get a gold record, nothing, You'd put the meal out and it would be devoured, and that would be the only way you'd know if it was any good,
One of the things that John was most eager to talk about was his relationship with his son, Sean.
The other day I got to see him for a good hour without any event going on, without he was busy or I was busy or something happening. And there was something on TV. We were sort of half watching it. We were lying in the bed together. And it was something about models or something. And he's lying there next to me. He says, when I grow up, I want to be just a daddy. I said, oh, I see. I said, you mean that you wish I wasn't making this record, right? And I was being just a daddy. He says, yeah, that's right. I said, well, you know what? I says, remembering all these housewives I'd seen interviewed as they got liberated. I could hear myself talking. I was saying, well, you see, it makes Daddy happy to make the music. And if Daddy's happy, then when he's with you, he'll have less tension, Because he knows what tension is. He knows when I'd get tense would be when I was torn or unfulfilled, And I said, it doesn't take long. It'll only be another week or something like that. And then I'll be back here with you, And he says, because I have him to the studio, once or twice a week to let him see what's going on. He says, but you don't do anything. You just sit there. So he hadn't seen me performing with the musicians or singing, the first session, because I was too nervous after 5 years or even after 2 weeks. First sessions, I'm always very hyper, so I would be rude to him or offhand, which can hurt him for a week, one offhand remark. They're so sensitive. So he missed the exciting part, which is when everybody's banging and playing. And I didn't bring him into overdubs. And I was generally sitting in the seat there, like listening to overdubs. And I said, well, I'm listening there. He says, no, but you didn't I said, it's just like a big tape recorder. He says, I know that. You explained that. But you didn't even touch it, meaning that Jack and Lee, the engineer, were touching it. I was thinking, oh, he thinks I just don't do anything. And what he's saying is that what I'm doing isn't worth, if it's not that much fun, his idea of fun is action, it's if you're leaving me just to sit in a seat, So, I mean, we're that close that it is painful. I'm feeling guilt-ridden and racked because, what's a record compared with Child? It's nothing. But still, I have to do it.
More than almost anyone, John Lennon knew about the pressures of the music business. During our conversation, we talked about that.
If you think about it, I've been under pressure since I was 21 or 2. That's in public, that's been very famous. 22 is when I signed the first contract. So I've been producing sort of under pressure for almost 12 years or 15 years. I don't know how long it is, from 1962 up till 1974. That's a long time to be expected to and churning out thousands upon thousands of things. And there comes a point where I don't want to just churn out stuff that's just craftsman, even if it was a hit, presuming it was popular, that was just well crafted. Because I'm not interested in being a craftsman. I am a craftsman anyway. I've learned my trade and my craft from being in the studio and performing all those years. But I'm not interested in sustaining myself on my past reputation and getting away with it by craftsmanship, like some, let's say, older singers can do that. If you were just a singer, you get to be 50, 60, whatever, and your voice isn't so good, but your stage presence is such that it's not fake it, but you can do certain things that people sort of, somebody said they saw Elvis, I would never see him, although I worshipped him before he went in the army and when I was a kid. But I would never go and see him in Vegas or anything like that. I asked a great fan of his, who was Mal Evans, used to work for us. I said, well, what was it like, And he says, well, if you pretended that you were 16, then it was all right. You see, and I don't want to be a person where people have to pretend they're 16 to be able to watch me or to listen to me. And so if that's the way it's going to be, I will do something else,
What else? Had you ever considered doing anything else?
I never considered being a musician in a considered way, you see. I've never taken anything that considered. I had a lot of balls in the air, and when I became a professional musician the day I got a red letter from the art college saying, don't bother coming back next September. Now I'm a professional musician. I got myself to a point where I can live without music. My need is for expression.
Yeah. So
I can
would it have taken another form?
Yeah, probably.
Writing, painting, acting?
Acting, I'm not interested.
Not at all.
When I did How I Won the War with Dick Lester in 1966, I mean, regardless of what kind of movie it was, the main lesson I learned was it's best to be the director, because otherwise you're just sitting on your ass all day. But I did write Strawberry Fields while I was sitting on my ass in a desert in Spain. But the acting was absolutely not worth it. I understand it's beautiful when you hit it, but it's not worth it. I would be only interested in directing. Directing costs money. But I'm just as interested in anything that expresses. But still, expression through the music is second nature. Expressing through writing is second nature, and expressing through painting or visuals is second nature to me. Just my craft isn't as good in film or writing. Although the writing I was doing before writing and painting I did before I played music. But it's hard to say before because I was playing mouth organ and accordion, all sorts when I was a kid, but mainly I thought I was going to be a writer or a painter. So it's the instant satisfaction I need, So it can be expressed in many ways. But But here I am rocking and rolling, and it's fun. But if it gets not to be fun, I just walk away again because I know I can walk away now. It's not the be all and end all of my life.
Do you think
So I'm going to have fun with it like I did when we first started. So I found myself writing like I first used to write. I didn't think, I wouldn't get all intense about meaningful, meaningless, as Yoko wrote in Grapefruit 100 years ago. All that artsy-fartsy intellectual stuff, meaningful, meaningless, meaningless, meaningful. So I liberated myself from my own intellect and my own sort of image of myself. So therefore I could write again without consciously thinking about it, which was a joy. Listen to Wars and Bridges. When you get, if you want to, it's not, yeah, I was a miserable son of a bitch, I mean, I split from Yoko, I'd been drinking myself nearly dead, and I was really, really miserable. I was never that, I was always a bit intense, but it was really a miserable period, the separation and drinking and just complete loss of centeredness. But so I count myself lucky to be alive. One, I could have killed myself easy, subconsciously.
Did you think of it?
No, I mean, if I get depressed, I think I want to jump out of a window or something, but it usually passes.
Well, what stopped you from doing it?
Oh no, well I would never do it like that. I would fall under a truck when I was drunk, and do it that way. I couldn't do it the honorable way, like Harikiri or something. I would have to, I mean, I was stepping out of moving cars in '73, but I'd always been like that. It was just more so, and I've been like that as a youngster too. But a youngster, A, you're stronger, and B, I was all surrounded by the other Beatles and the managers and things like that who would protect me and cover for what I was doing. Paul or Brian Epstein would sort of shuffle me into a room, or one of the road managers, and before I would go wandering off into the streets again, looking for action or whatever. So, but in '73, on a split from Yoga, there was nobody to say no. So I just went to the extreme, I suppose.
Do you credit her with having much to do with your sanity?
Yeah, I'd be dead or insane or both if it wasn't for her. Sure.
John and I talked about what he actually went through when he set out to write a song.
I consider being possessed when the really creative music comes. Meaning, I don't sit down and say, I'm going to write a song about this, that, or the other, like one would do a lot of the time when one has to produce so many records or so many songs a year, that one could afford to wait for a Nowhere Man or songs that had come to me in the past, music and words, as if I'm a medium. You see, so that's how the real joy is there. So one has to not be, sometimes mediums can't produce these manifestations because they start doing it on call and they get business going, and then in one day I say, Lisa, I want to talk to so and so, and the mad thing doesn't come through because the woman blocks off. Mediums get blocked out too. They lose it. They can have natural psychic ability as children, and then suddenly, bam, they can't reach it. So
did you ever worry that you had lost it, that it wouldn't come back again?
Well, maybe I wouldn't face it because I knew I could always force something. Yeah.
Did you think people would know the difference?
Oh, I mean, people.
Or didn't you care?
No, I don't worry about people. People. I mean, I do worry about people. People. Part of me does. Okay, so I'm not. I'm not saying I'm immune to criticism. I don't want to be liked or nothing like that. But when I'm creating, the creating is the joy. The song coming and, oh my God, what's this doing? It's writing itself. It's like I'm watching somebody else doing it. God, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I use Nowhere Man as an example simply because I remember I struggled all morning, about 6 hours to write a song the day I wrote Nowhere Man in 1964 sometime. And I finally gave up. We've all experienced this on different levels. I lay down on the couch, I was really depressed. Can't write a song. And as I lay down exhausted like that, because I was no longer centered on this, I have to write a song. I just lay down. And I picked up the guitar and the whole damn thing was there. Well, all these songs came like that.
Over the past few years, there had been unbelievable outside pressure on John to perform and to make music again. He explained to me how he reacted to the criticism about his absence from the music scene.
The thing is, I got a bit indignant about Sid Bernstein, Dave Marsh, Mick Jagger.
What did you ever say?
I was in Japan at the time, and I got this English paper there, and it was a big thing in Observer. He likes me, I like him, that business. And he says, you know, I live opposite John or something. He must have lived on the other side of the east side. You know? And he's going on about John never calls. Do you think he ever calls me? He never calls me. And he keeps changing his phone number all the time. And he's hiding behind the kid. I was hurt by it, you know, the fact that, A, I never call anybody. It's not pride, it's just that I never ever have.
Why?
I never call the other Beatles, I never call anybody. They always call me.
Why?
Because I'm self-involved. I'm paranoid too. I don't like phones. So there's nobody on this earth ever got a call from me that isn't related, probably. Or a very old friend. And even in Liverpool, if they didn't call me, I didn't come. When I got back from, when we were deported from Hamburg, first George was deported, and then Paul, and I was the only one old enough to stay there, and I was working with the house band for another month or so after the others had left. This is an old story. Now then finally, I was deported too, and I came home from Hamburg on my own on the train through Holland. It was pretty scary, and I felt, well, I did it, you know. I got home, I didn't call the other Beatles for 3 weeks. And they were mad at me because I hadn't called them. But I was thinking about things, you know.
But this bit that somehow that you had this kind of responsibility to the world, and that you could decide to become Greta Garbo or something. And
Greta Hughes, I call myself. But why were they getting angry at me? You know, it's like if I was dead, they wouldn't be angry at me. If I'd conveniently died in the mid-70s after a rock and roll album or Walls and Bridges, and they'd all be writing this worshipful stuff about what a great guy, and you know, and wasn't he funny with a Tampax on his head? You know, all that stuff, like it's all right when you're dead, you see. And they'd all be saying, oh, what a great guy and wonderful, wonderful, and that. But I didn't die, so that infuriated everybody that I would live and do what I want to do, you know, which is look after me and the family. That was the central concern, to be a family and not lose that. Was more important than creation and records and rock and roll and being in Billboard.